So I'm thrilled today to introduce my friend and colleague, Deanne Newton of Newton Holistic Health. And we're going to talk about some great stuff today. So Deanne, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, including how you got into your personal wellness journey and helping others now?
Yes, of course. But thank you so much for asking me to be here. I'm very, very excited. My personal journey really started way back when I was younger, and I always had skin issues and I always had hives. And so I knew at a very early age that nutrition was super important because I knew that the food that I was eating, that was the problem. And as I got older, I started to have more problems. I had IBS and I just wasn't getting the help that I needed. My father was actually a doctor and I went to several other doctors, and it was always a pill, or a cream for my skin. And it was never really about what was going on. And so I kind of went on the journey myself. I started to try all different things. I went to PA school, and there was kind of more of the same there. I worked in orthopedics and dermatology. And again, really weren't getting to the root of the problem, but just giving a pill or a cream. So I became a nutritionist and I became a yoga instructor, and I really started to find my way. And then I found functional medicine, and that was it for me. That was bringing everything that I felt really strongly about into one place. And that's where I've been ever since. And that's what I do. I help women with ongoing gut issues relieve their pain and symptoms so they can regain their confidence, joy, and happiness and health. And what I wanted to talk about today, just a little bit about functional medicine, because not everybody knows about that. There's really three basic components to it, and this is my philosophy as well, is one, we are all unique. And so that's why one diet, one pill doesn't work for everyone. So that's always an important thing to remember. Two, everything matters. So your diet, your stress levels, your sleep, your lifestyle matters to your health. And lastly, that everything is connected. And I think this is the really important one for people to see, because conventional medicine doesn't really work with this as well. We seem to compartmentalize medical issues. And so say you have a thyroid problem, you think that's the only problem in the body is the thyroid, and you can give a pill to make your thyroid make more hormones and everything is going to be okay. But unfortunately, that's not the way it works, because the gut problem is probably what happened first. Then the thyroid started to have problems, and then the adrenal glands, and then the brain, because everything is connected on a nervous, from the nervous system, as well as a chemical, with chemical messengers like hormones.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And you know this too, that I suffered from IBS, very severe IBS from my early teens into my early 30s. It was a really long time. And that was kind of how I got into my journey too, because nobody had any answers, and I was, except for a pill, right? And,
Exactly.
Not even any talking about what I ate, which is obviously so absurd. And I really relate to what you talk about this compartmentalization of medicine. And this hit me a few years ago. Somebody that I know had migraines, and we were talking about it, and she was like, oh, my doctor sent me to two different doctors who specialize in migraines. One specializes in this kind of migraine and the other. And I was like, this makes no sense. Like, it's all together. So I love this. And, people might really be surprised. The women here might really be surprised that digestion has a lot to do with our hormones and how we are experiencing perimenopause and menopausal symptoms. And for those of you who don't know, my background is in yoga, and yoga is wellness science. And the word in Sanskrit is called Ayurveda. And all that means is science or knowledge of life. And one of my teachers called it it's like a blueprint of how to live in a body. And in Ayurveda, the digestive system is king, because if we're not digesting food properly, nothing else in the body is going to work. So we talk about waste and how that works. And we can't function if we're still holding on to waste from yesterday or from last week or beyond. And there are a lot of ways that that waste can contribute to our health, or accumulating waste is, that's a bigger conversation. But in terms of digestion and elimination, that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to hand it back to you, Deanne, and tell us about, what a healthy elimination pooping looks like, and what so many women don't know about it, and how it can contribute to our symptoms in perimenopause.
All right. All right, yeah, we're going to dive right in and talk about poop. So I hope everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
So yes, we have whatever comes in has to go out. And when we talk about constipation, sometimes people think of it as two different things. So at least in medicine, we talk about two different things. One, in functional medicine, if you're not pooping at least one time a day, you're constipated. Second, if you have difficulty pooping, so if it's really difficult for you to eliminate it, and you push and you strain and it's hard and it's like pebbles, then that is also considered constipation. But ideally, we want to be pooping every day, if not 2 to 3 times a day, and specifically in the morning when we get up. So hugely, hugely important. And I like to think about the gut as a garbage disposal, because you're putting things in, things are getting broken down, and then things have to keep moving out. And what happens is that with constipation, things aren't moving out, they're getting stuck. And you know what happens when the drain and all of that gets stuck is everything starts to back up. And then it's going to cause not only problems where it is, but it's going to cause problems in all the other systems, because it's going to back up into that.
Yeah. I always, when we really think about the body and what a miracle it is, it's amazing. Like, we eat plants, or the animals that ate the plants. When we think about that, what's on the shelf that's in a box is not really either one of those. And so that's going to be even harder to digest. But the food actually becomes our body. And when we think about that, we're going to be more mindful about what we put in. Like, this is becoming my body. Like, what is more important than what you're taking in? And, the body digests and reabsorbs, and that's what keeps us going. Our brain function, everything else, our nervous system, our heart beating, all of that. So if there is breakdown or an inefficiency in digestion, it's really going to affect everything. And in Ayurveda as well, pooping first thing in the morning. And one of my teachers also said, like, if you don't poop first thing in the morning, you're carrying yesterday's waste into today. So thank you for explaining that about constipation. Now let's talk about how, or why that is going to impact our hormones and the imbalances there, please.
Okay. So first I want to say that, so a lot of people don't realize that the problem with hormones in perimenopause and menopause, it's all about the ratio of estrogen to progesterone. And so if you think of like a seesaw, you want those to be in balance, the ratio. And so if that tips in either direction, if there's too much estrogen or there's a lot less progesterone, so then that's also going to tip the scale. That's when you start to have problems. So we'll start with that first. But when we talk about getting things out, the liver is what breaks down estrogen. So we have to break that down into an inactive form, and the excess comes out in our poop. But if we're having problems with constipation and we're not getting things out, what happens is that estrogen actually gets reabsorbed into the body. It can get reactivated, and then that can cause a shift in the ratio of estrogen to progesterone, because most women actually have estrogen dominance just because of lifestyle, the way people live.
And thank you for that. And so that can happen at any time in a woman's life with that reabsorption with the liver. As
Absolutely.
hormones change, as they start to change in perimenopause and menopause, we know that that the common symptoms are hot flashes and night sweats, irritability, lack of libido, and excess weight. So this is really interesting, you guys. So let's let Deanne talk about why the imbalances are actually contributing to the symptoms.
So again, there can be many different reasons why, but if we talk a little bit about estrogen dominance, so there's many reasons why you can have estrogen dominance. When you have, if you're not eating at the right time throughout the day or balanced meals, your blood sugar levels will be imbalanced. When that happens, your progesterone levels dive. So then that is, again, we're talking about that ratio. So that's changing the ratio. If your liver is not working as well as it should, and it's not able to break down the estrogen, then that estrogen is going to recirculate into the body, and that's going to shift that seesaw again. If you have a lot of excess weight, fat cells actually can make estrogen. So if those fat cells are getting dizzy and they're making lots of estrogen, it's going to change that ratio. When we break down estrogen, we need certain vitamins and minerals. We need zinc, we need magnesium, we need B vitamins, we need protein. If you're not taking that in, then you're not able to break down the estrogen. And again, you're going to have that high level of estrogen and that ratio is going to be off. So there's lots of different reasons. Oh, and the birth control pill, that's a big one, because so many of us, myself included, I was on the birth control from, college until, in my 30s. And that there's two things with that is, you're putting excess hormones into the body. So that's more hormones that your body has to break down and get rid of. But the pill specifically, it stops ovulation, which then decreases the amount of progesterone. So if you're doing that over and over the years, you're lowering your progesterone, but you're increasing your estrogen, and that's just shifting that ratio.
So interesting, especially about the hormones of the birth control pills and the IUDs that have the birth controls that so many women are on until, they stay on as long as they want, I guess. I mean, until they're mid 40s or 50. I know some women that are 50 and they're still taking it. And would you say that that's going to impact the severity of their symptoms in some way?
It can definitely, but again, there's a lot of other things to look at. But yes, like we said, it's just not one thing to look at. But yes, that will definitely affect hormone levels, and it will basically shift you to that estrogen dominance.
Okay. And I have a final question, since we're talking about our hormones from the outside coming inside. Why does hormone replacement therapy, HRT, whether it's patches, whether it's oral, whether it's cream, how are those hormones not addressing the underlying issues?
So like the example I said in the beginning about the thyroid, it's basically you're compartmentalizing your hormones. So you're looking at the hormones and the lowering of the hormones as the problem, and you're just going to give hormones back in. First off, we don't really know about the ratio. So it takes time to work on that ratio. But as we know, and we've said today, everything starts in the gut. And we've also talked about how important liver health is. So we really need to back it up, I like to say, because what we have a tendency to do is jump on medications first. We have to back it up and look at what the real problem is, the root problem. We have to look at nutrition. We have to look at digestion. We have to look at your liver. Mainly, we have to look at how you're pooping. That's my main, that's the question I ask everybody,
Yep.
What's your poop like? How often do you poop? So that is very, very important. So you cannot treat your hormones by just putting more hormones into the body. That is not the answer.
No,
It's
thank
kind
that.
of like, it's kind of like a Band-Aid. I call it
Yeah.
a Band-Aid when you're basically using medication or over the counter something to make it more comfortable, to manage it. A lot of people say,
Mhm.
well, I'm managing it, I'm getting through the day. But in order to really get to the root problem, to eliminate those issues, you have to back it up and look at other things.
Yeah. A friend, you know her too, Gifty, she talks about are we medicalizing a lifestyle issue? And I love that so much because it's like we look to the medical, and most of us look to the medical answer first, which is always going to be a little simpler. It's always going to be a little simpler, and looking just at, you know, do this and that it is a band-aid. So, so much of what's going on in perimenopause and menopause has been it's building up based on habits and lifestyle routines and nutrition that we've had for many years. And we get to a certain point and then they worsen. Those symptoms worsen. If you haven't been pooping every day, a lot of people are kind of shocked. And if you're shocked to hear that you should be going every day, like it's kind of interesting that your doctor isn't telling you this when an Ayurvedic doctor who is basing it on science of 3,000, 4,000 years, that's the first question. Functional medicine, that's the first question. So, you know, that's one of the first things that we look at. So you can just ask yourself that question. And so for those of you who are struggling in menopause with these symptoms and want to have more support, I want to invite you to book a free breakthrough call with me. I'm going to put the link below, and we will just check in and, you know, how perimenopause or menopause is negatively affecting your life right now, and really where you want to go and how you do want to feel. And it's going to be a really good use of your time. Again, it's free. You just go to my calendar page and book. And I want to invite Deanne to let us know how we can reach you.
I can give you a link that you can put below as well, and you can get in touch with me. I have a private Facebook group that you can join and learn a little bit. I've got something fun going on right now. It's Croctoberfest. So you can come over there for some fun recipes, but we can put that link below. And I just want to say one thing that you just said that I think is so important. So many people go through life thinking that they're super healthy because they're just not really having any symptoms, or they're not really aware of the symptoms. They think they're normalizing the symptoms. But when you start to have menopause symptoms, or perimenopause symptoms, just remember that it's not an overnight thing. It's because of what's been going on for a long time. And that comes back to constipation. How has your digestion been working for the 10 years before, maybe the 20 years before? Yeah. So I know women get very upset. It's like, what did I do wrong? Like, why is this happening? They want to know the one thing, the two things that they can do to just get rid of all these symptoms. And it's just not that easy because it has been built up over time. And that's, again, why we have to go back to your lifestyle, your nutrition, and your digestion.
Yeah. And, you know, in terms of the HRT, like I'm not against that at all. If that's what you're doing, we're not against that at all. I'm not against that at all. But it's like, if that's just what you're doing, you can treat the surface, but you're not treating the underlying cause. So when women say, well, I'm just going to do that, it's like, okay, that's great. But your overall health, you will benefit so much more by looking at these basic lifestyle routines and habits. So Deanne, you and I could talk all day long, I know. And I would definitely love to have you back to talk about some other aspects of digestion. Maybe we'll talk about the upper
yes,
part
I would
of
love
digestion. One of my teachers, I'm talking about everything I learned, talked about like your digestive system starting at your tongue and your mouth, right?
Absolutely.
All the way down to the end. And so often people think about it, well, it's heartburn, well, it's my stomach. No, it starts way, way, way up above. And even when you're smelling the food, like it starts.
Yes, it starts. Yeah.
Your digestive enzymes start. So thank you so so much, Deanne. Everybody, please post your questions. I have a poll up there about what you would like to learn about. I'm really loving these conversations with these amazing women to help us demystify perimenopause and menopause and thrive for the second half of your life. So we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.